Apple has been making headlines lately, but for all the wrong reasons. Most recently, Apple got hit with a nearly $2 billion antitrust fine by the European Commission. And let's not forget the ongoing dispute with Epic Games, a new investigation by the EU, and a new lawsuit from the United States Justice Department. Ouch! Let's explore what the heck is going on with Apple and whether leaving Europe is a real possibility. Let's start with the most recent fine before we continue to the latest investigations. Spotify has consistently voiced its concerns about Apple's App Store rules, claiming that they impose unjust limitations on its business. And so, the European Commission has sided with Spotify and imposed a hefty fine of $2 billion on Apple. The two companies have been at war for a long time, with Spotify luring users away from Apple's iTunes. Both have made moves into each other's territory during this ongoing conflict. When Apple launched its own streaming service, Apple Music, in 2015, Spotify claimed that Apple was able to offer lower prices for its streaming service because it didn't have to pay the same App Store fees as its competitors. As EU politicians began demanding regulations for big tech, Spotify became increasingly outspoken. The European Commission's announcement of a $2 billion fine on Apple is a clear indication that Spotify's efforts are working. The fine is far bigger than expected, causing Apple's stock to drop 3%. Reports based on unnamed sources estimated a penalty of around 500 million euros. This fine is among the largest that the EU has issued on a tech company, ranking below only two Google fines of $5.1 billion and $2.4 billion. The executive vice president in charge of competition policy has said the following: "For a decade, Apple abused its dominant position in the market for the distribution of music streaming apps through the App Store. They did so by restricting developers from informing consumers about alternative, cheaper music services available outside of the Apple ecosystem. This is illegal under EU antitrust rules, so today we have fined Apple over 1.8 billion euros. Apple has the option to withdraw from Europe, ceasing the sale of its products in the EU. Although it is a significant market, it is not exceptionally large compared to Apple's standards. It accounts for approximately 8 to 10% of their revenue, which amounts to around $35 billion per year out of a total of $383 billion. At what stage would Apple's CEO, Tim Cook, consider this figure and decide that it is not worth continuing business in Europe? Because this battle is far from over. Let's take a look at the other lawsuits against Apple. Spotify is not the only company facing problems with Apple. Epic Games is also engaged in a long battle with the tech giant. Recently, Epic Games, the creator of Fortnite, revealed that Apple has chosen to terminate its developer account, adding a new twist to the ongoing Apple and Epic story. In a letter sent to Epic, lawyers representing Apple said that Epic has proven to be verifiably untrustworthy. Apple said it cannot be assured that Epic will follow the Apple Developer Program's terms and conditions in the future. In a press release, Epic said that Apple terminating the Swedish developer account is a serious violation of the Digital Markets Act and shows Apple has no intention of allowing true competition on iOS devices. But then Epic Games released an update stating, "Apple has told us and committed to the European Commission that they will reinstate our developer account. This sends a strong signal to developers that the European Commission will act swiftly to enforce the Digital Markets Act and hold gatekeepers accountable. We are moving forward as planned to launch the Epic Games Store and bring Fortnite back to iOS in Europe." The dispute between the two companies started in 2020 when Apple took Fortnite off the App Store because Epic added a direct payment option for V-Bucks, which is going against the App Store guidelines. Shortly after, Epic sued Apple, alleging anti-competitive practices. Apple had already terminated one of Epic's other developer accounts after the company violated the App Store's rules with its Fortnite stunt. Epic is still pursuing legal action against Apple in the United States and Australia, indicating that the widely covered legal dispute is ongoing. Just this week, the EU announced investigations into some of the largest tech companies in the world, including Apple, Meta, and Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, for potential violations of the Digital Markets Act. If they are found to have broken the rules, the firms can face huge fines of up to 10% of their annual turnover, rising to 20% for repeated infringements. Annual revenue at Apple last year was $383 billion, while at Alphabet it was $307 billion, and at Meta $134 billion. The EU said it will investigate 5 different possible acts of non-compliance in its announcement. 1 and 2. whether Apple and Alphabet are not allowing apps to freely communicate with users and make contracts with them. 3. Whether Apple is not giving users enough choice. 4. Whether Meta is unfairly asking people to pay to avoid their data being used for adverts. 5. Whether Google preferences the firm's own goods and services in search results. The first two of these investigations concern what is known as anti-steering. The EU says it believes the firms are making it difficult for apps to tell users about ways to pay less for their services outside of using App Store's own payment methods. Under the third point, the EU says that Apple must ensure users can easily remove apps, change default settings, and access choice screens for alternative browsers or search engines. The EU criticized Apple for not providing enough options on the web browser's choice screen and highlighted that certain apps like Apple Photos cannot be uninstalled. Apple said it's confident that its plan complies with the Digital Markets Act and stated its commitment to actively cooperate with the European Commission during their investigations. The company said that it has introduced a wide range of new developer capabilities, features, and tools to comply with the regulation. Now, I'm curious to know your thoughts on whether Apple could potentially leave the European Union in the future. Leave a comment and share your opinion. The European Union is not the only place dealing with lawsuits and investigations against Apple. The United States Justice Department alleges that the maker of the iPhone illegally maintains its control over the smartphone market by excluding competing apps and devices. Generally speaking, the government claims that Apple should make the iPhone operating system more accessible for non-Apple businesses to add and run their own products, such as digital wallets, smartwatches, messaging apps, and cloud streaming apps on the iPhone. Apple said that forcing it to open up the iPhone's ecosystem would ultimately harm consumers by hampering its ability to design the kind of technology people expect from Apple, where hardware, software, and services intersect. That argument does have a flaw. The reason for the iPhone's security is due to Apple's business model, not just the phone's design. They make money on devices and services, not necessarily by collecting information on their users for ads like Google or Facebook. The government's answer is that Apple's design of the iPhone is illegal because it works most optimally with its own apps and products, like iWatch, iMessage, Apple Wallet, and the App Store. That, in turn, makes it difficult for customers to switch to a non-Apple device. So Apple definitely has its hands full with all these lawsuits and investigations, and right now it's not clear what the US is really aiming for with Apple, whether it's a hefty fine, changing its practices, or both. But regardless of the outcome, Apple is likely to continue to overhaul its software and move closer to the approach it's been forced to take in Europe. Want to know how you can boost your iPhone battery life? Then check out this video. You can improve your iPhone's battery performance in just 13 simple steps.